Donald Trump changing, and why did he just get gagged in federal court? Well, as promised, we turn to our experts, two experienced former DOJ officials, Neil Katyal and Joyce Vance. Joyce, I want to hand it right to you with one of the charts that we ended on in our leadoff story tonight, which is how these two cases are combining or colliding to put pressure on Trump. Your thoughts on that and what he faces in the federal court trial?
Right. So clearly the federal charges are the charges that feel most important to all of us, Ari, because that's the central conspiracy around January 6th and the big lie. It's always been a little bit of a mystery whether there's any coordination between Fani Willis and Jack Smith. We don't see anything happening publicly. But whether it's intentional or not, those two cases are, as you say, impacting each other. And every time Fani Willis gets a new plea deal down in Georgia, Donald Trump's lawyers in Washington have to flinch. Mark Meadows is also an unknown. His lawyer pushed back very stridently, saying that the evidence that Meadows was testifying to was not as favorable as reported. I've seen defense lawyers actually do that to protect their client before they get to a big trial. That's not impossible. Or Meadows could be in part a hostile witness who was forced to testify by the grant of immunity. Either way, though, prosecutors now know what Meadows' testimony will be, and that was what was important here. They need to know if he's friendly, if he's not friendly, and precisely how that fits into their case.
Neil?
Yeah, so first of all, Ari, I thought that your monologue did such a good job of laying out not just the different cases that are against Donald Trump, but all the different pleas and cooperators and where this ultimately is going to go. And I thought you made such an important point in saying, look, these are courtrooms now. This is not politics. Trump lives in the land of politics, and he tries to use his political attacks in court. He tried that back in the 2020 election 62 times and lost. And he's trying to do a similar thing here, a kind of combination of lawlessness and intimidation. And that's why you have this re-gag order imposed today, which I do think, for the reasons you said, is incredibly significant, because what Judge Chutkan found was, look, Trump, you're not playing by the rules. You're trying to intimidate witnesses. You're trying to attack prosecutors. And you're ultimately a threat to the rule of law if you continue this behavior. And what did she point to in particular? She pointed to Trump's own testimony, his own tweet, or whatever you call it, a Truth Social, against Mark Meadows, the person you were just talking about. So in a way, Donald Trump gave the strongest evidence against his motion to try and unseal the gag order, but he was the best witness against that, because he himself, the minute that it was lifted, started going and attacking witnesses once again.
And Neil, what does it tell us that he's not just saying, oh, Mark, tell him everything. You were in on the meetings, a call to Georgia, calls to other places. Yeah, tell him what happened. I'm very confident that the full story will match my innocence. It sounds very much something else, which is why I make the comparison I make to Gotti is about the tampering. I'm not, for example, suggesting that Donald Trump was running interstate mafia business and construction in New York. I am suggesting that the evidence shows that both of these people, when they get in trouble, have quite literally been credibly accused of tampering with the process, meaning not that the process will find the facts and they're comfortable with that, but that they're afraid that the evidence and the facts would convict them.
That's right, Ari. So it's not, you're not saying that Trump is doing the same crime, substantive crimes like drug dealing as the mob or something. You're saying it's mob tactics. And that is, of course, Trump's modus operandi. When has he ever, in any of these investigations, told people to go tell the truth, without fear of consequence before the grand jury or to prosecutors? Never. Because Trump is afraid of the truth the way that a vampire is afraid of sunlight. And so he's going to consistently say this, scare them, try and get them scared, say, as he did to Mark Meadows, cooperators are people who are weak and things like that. And so it's going to be attack after attack with the idea of intimidating, which is straight out of the mob playbook. You're right. It's not the same crimes, but it is the same behavior and the same threat to the rule of law that a mob boss poses.
Joyce?
Well, I think Neil's dead on the money here. And Trump didn't stop when the judge reimposed the gag order, which I think is the telling point. You know, Neil makes this fine line point here that the best evidence against Trump always comes from Trump. We've seen that. I think that that's something we've discussed about for the last 6 years, starting with the firing of Jim Comey, right? It's always Trump revealing his own inner motives and talking about what he's done. And so here we see that last night. Judge Chutkan reimposes the gag order. She's had it on an administrative stay to give Trump the opportunity to respond and to argue against it. She finds that his arguments aren't meritorious. And just minutes after it's reimposed, he's back on Truth Social talking about Bill Barr in very similar ways to the way that he talked about Mark Meadows. But even beyond that, like Neil, I struggled because I don't want to call it a truth, but that's what they call it on Truth Social. So Trump has this truth that he posts while the gag order is stayed. He doesn't take it down when the gag order is reimposed. And technically, that means that he's in violation of the gag order. The gag order doesn't say if you said it before the gag order was imposed and keep saying it, we'll give you grace. Here, Trump's failure to take it down is something I think we'll see prosecutors bring to the court's attention pretty quickly.